Hello, my friends, and welcome. Welcome to week 3 of this April Poetry Celebration. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you're having fun. I sure am. My name is Kate Chadbourne, and I'm a singer, storyteller, poet, and teacher. And I'm hosting this celebration in conjunction with the journal makers Jumping Fox Design. They are a woman-run company out of California who make beautiful journals and notebooks and now binders. And they are very generously providing the prizes for our celebration. So we love them, and I must say, I love their products. So it has really been a fun week. So many wonderful poems and poets swirling around. 31 poets this week have been involved, and that is just so exciting. I want to thank all of you who have invited your friends, who have reached out to other poets, who have encouraged other poets. I really think it matters that we open our arms to everyone, and you have helped in so many ways by doing that. So thank you. The trove of poems that came in this week, again, just one gem after another. Let me just give you a sense of some of the topics. A lot of them, if you remember last week, our sort of topic was wonder and wander. And so a lot of walking poems came in and exploration poems. And I love that. You took it to heart, and what you came up with was really delightful. We had a beautiful poem about encountering a deer that was nearly like a spirit deer. You know, in medieval stories, the deer is often the animal that leads us into enchantment, certainly in Irish stories. You pursue the deer and you end up somewhere very different. And this poem by my friend Kathleen was like that, like an opening into another world. We had a beautiful ode to blueberry picking, an encounter with a heron. A lot of the natural world. There was lichen, moss, mushrooms, bumblebees, a wonderful questioning of a moth, so lovely, and we had every part of life. I wanted to put this delicately, but we had one of our poets waiting for test results. That's part of life. We, on the other part of the spectrum, we had a wild party at 2 a.m. in the apartment above the poet, and the sort of life of living in that apartment building and trying to get your work done, and the next day walking around with headphones on. Just marvelous and so full of life. I just love that. We had a poem of reading Seamus Heaney, the wonderful poet Seamus Heaney, in the hospital. So much, as I say, so many wandering and wondering poems, and we'll hear some of them today. Again, I want to thank every one of you for trusting me with your poems, for sharing them with our community. We're building an energy together, and it's special. So let me dive into our community poems this week. I want to start off with one called April Fools. I am recording this on Easter Sunday, and here in my town, in the middle of Massachusetts, we have had hail and snow, a spattering of rain, and sun. So that's April. So this wonderful poem by Angela is called April Fools, and I just thought it's perfect for today. Slap me high five, you silly god, wearing a blizzard coat. It's April, you show-off. We fools scoop up froth spewing from your laughing mouth, fickle comedian. Just yesterday, the heat of spring beckoning robins to nest. Hear our cry of hunger, throw a few crumbs of warmth, deafening your lightning saw, severing the limb of an old oak tree. Moans and wishbones split, crushing neighbor's fence, releasing to freedom boys, dogs, led by carrot-nosed snowmen shouting, "The joke's on you today." I love that. My friend Julie explores the other side of the spectrum of coming out into the beautiful world as it's beginning to welcome us into more, we'll say, more convivial weather. Her poem is called Green and Blue. Pale grass finally turning green reminds me the cold weather is gone. Blue skies, perfectly white clouds. The winter felt exceptionally long. But now, as my cheeks feel warm with delight from the sunshine, I am happy. I love that. That pale grass turning green, it means so much, doesn't it? Now, my friend Andrew delighted me by sending a poem this week. I'm so happy to be in touch. We're old friends, and I wanted to share this poem. It is a poem walk inspired by the dare from last week, which was to go on a poetry walk. And his poem is called Spring Cleaning. May this be a walk of acquisition. I pep talk myself mid-jacket zip. Surely there will be much to accrue. Inspiring insights, epic epiphanies, powerful perspectives, tantalizing truths. My eager feet clomp onto tree roots, hoping to extract clarity, wisdom, answers from the knowing earth below. By the time I'm home, there should be bags to unpack as though returning from the grocery store. Sweet reconciliations, savory reflections, spicy ruminations. Yet, each inhale of the inviting spring air brings jarring clarity. I'll be lighter upon returning, not heavier. For like a garter snake slithering into warmer weather, I find myself shedding regret, remorse, rejection. Gazing at the endless sky lifts a grudge from my gut to the clouds. Listening to the robin's melody ejects discordant refrains from my internal playlist. Smelling the fresh lilac releases malodorous thoughts. 2 miles from home, no broom in hand, no Windex to be found. Spring cleaning has begun. That's marvelous, isn't it? That is a marvelous poem. Thank you for that. And I want to just draw attention to something that I really love in a poem, and it is the turn. In this poem, yet. So Andrew tells us what he is expecting. He's expecting answers and these epic epiphanies. Yet, instead of returning with, as he calls them, sort of the grocery bags of insight, what he finds is that the natural world tidies him up inside. And the poem neatly divides in half, really. And yet is what initiates us. So that's just something I notice, and I really love that moment when a poem turns like that. Spring cleaning has begun. Love that. Now, I mentioned in our introduction that we are building something together. There is a momentum when we write together, and I love it. One of my favorite feelings on planet Earth is the feeling of writing alongside other people. Not talking, just writing, feeling, thinking. And we can do that whether we're in the same room or not. Next week, we'll talk more about that, specifically when it comes to writing with friends, which I'm so excited to share with you. But I want to share with you a pairing that comes from a mother and a daughter. Now, many of you may remember one of the very first poems we had, I think now 2 years ago, was by Rosie, who was at the time, she would have been 4 because she's 6 now, and she wrote that majestic poem, Strawberry, Strawberry, Riding a Horse. One of my all-time favorites. So she wrote a poem called Octopus Flower, and meanwhile, at the same time, in another room, her mother wrote a poem, which you'll hear right after, but you'll hear that there's a link, even though they weren't speaking about it. Octopus Flower by Rosie. Octopus, octopus, octopus flower. If you like a dandy, be a flower. If you like a lion, be an octopus. That is some of the best advice I can ever imagine. Rosie is a natural poet. Rosie's brother is Declan, who gave us our spark from last week, and really a family of majestic poets for sure. And my dear friend, Rosie's mother, wrote this poem, and you'll hear there is a link to Rosie's poem. It's called Les Dents de Lion, Dandelion. She is wild, she is free. She does not ask permission. She doesn't care what the neighbors think. Her beauty is radiant. Her taproot is deep. She is a gift from the ancestors. She heals. She nourishes. She is resilient. She smells of the sweetest butter. She tells time. She carries wishes. She is willing to change. And when it is time to let go, she is generous. That gives me a chill. That is a beautiful poem. I love that. And it sort of links to what we're going to be talking about today, which is sensitivity and sensibility. And here, Anne has cast her sensitivity deeply into the life of the dandelion and brought back treasure and insight. I love that. So great. My friend Donna and my neighbor delighted me by sending a prose poem. Now, just to say, this is 4 lines, not arranged in that way that looks like a poem. I share it because I loved the honesty and directness of it, and also because I want to encourage anyone, experiment with forms. Have fun. Write a poem, as I said at the beginning, is what you say it is. You can arrange a poem any way you want. So I liked this poem so much. It's called Insight by the Sea by Donna. I want emotional freedom. Finally, being able to sit peacefully by the sea. Sounds of the waves against the shore. The barking of our dog. It was over. The silence was thunderous. What was to become of our dog? After the breakup, what follows is freedom. The magnificent seashore, and no thoughts of a lover cheating. That's amazing, isn't it? How much life is in those 4 lines? Questions, resolutions, a new emotional situation, the dog. There's so much there. It's wonderful, and there's a moment, an emotional moment that is captured in that poem. Beautiful. My friend Bob, who is also a wonderful musician, in addition to being a poet, sent a poem this week thinking about what is a poet. And this is what he says. A poet takes the mundane and turns it into something special. A poet in the midst of darkness sees only light. When confronted with hate, a poet finds love. In the throes of sadness, a poet finds beauty. I love that. That's our potential, right? As poets, is to be looking in, looking deeply, looking for what we are seeking, and seeing with a certain gaze that can transform things. My friend and student, and I love to call him my spiritual little brother, Trey Dennis, who is 10 years old, shared this wonderful haiku, and it's called In Music Class. In music class, in a free cacophony, I always find peace. Aren't these wonderful? And finally, I want to share my friend Mike's poem, Noticing the Little Things. This is really also a link to our theme of this week, this new week, sensitivity and sensibility. You'll hear Mike giving, allowing his sensitivity to the world to speak to him, to let him notice things. I love the way Mike thinks. So this is called Noticing the Little Things. I hike a lot. On a sunny winter day, I look for snow fleas in the sun on the snow. In the spring, I look for skunk cabbage in the wet areas. I hear birds, but I can't identify many of them. It's great when I hear a woodpecker. I know it's a woodpecker, but I don't know what kind. What's the difference between a peeper and a wood frog? Sometimes I look under a log to see if there is a salamander. What's the difference between a salamander, a newt, and an eft? How do water bugs stay on top of the water? Why don't they sink? Once you start seeing lichen, you can't stop. I often notice the little things, and they give me solace. One of my favorite lines, I think, ever is, once you start seeing lichen, you can't stop. Thank you, everybody. Those are marvelous. I know these videos are getting longer. I want to read all the poems. I love them so much. Keep them coming. So again, as ever, how do you participate? Send me poems by Friday. That would be the 22nd of April. Friday, the 22nd of April at 5 o'clock. You just send them in, if you will, in one email or one attachment to kate@katechadbourne.com. And again, I'll put all the details in the comment under this video. So as I said, our topic this week is sensitivity and sensibility. And these are two things, two gifts of the poet. Sometimes our sensitivity is seen as a liability. Maybe you've been told, poets, that you're too sensitive, that you have a thin skin, that you feel too deeply. Well, I want to propose to you that actually your sensitivity is a great superpower. And don't apologize for it. Sensibility, the way that I see it, is your frame of reference. And I've often said your frame of reference is the most valuable thing you have. It is your way of seeing the world, and it is made up of your experiences, your insight, your learning, the knowledge, the wisdom that you gain, your thoughts, what you put in your mind. I used to tell my niece that what we put in our mind, what we watch and read, becomes our materials for thinking. So cultivating our sensitivity and cultivating our sensibility is a wonderful way to deepen in our practice and experience as poets. So I want to share with you a poem this week. We are very lucky to have Wes McNair, who I've shared Wes's poems with you before, and I told him that we regard him really as our kind of patron saint and our poet on this journey. And he very kindly has shared two poems with me, and both of them have to do with aging, and they are going to be published in his book, which is coming out in October from Godine, published by the publisher Godine, called Late Wonders, New and Selected Poems. You're going to want that book. I'm going to absolutely be pre-ordering that book. I want to have it. I'm going to share with you one of the poems this week and one next week. That was actually my mother's idea, because we want to let these poems really take up the space that they deserve. So I'm going to share with you one poem, and as you listen to it, maybe think about our topic of sensitivity. It's called My Mother's Penmanship Lessons. In her last notes, when her hand began to tremble, my mother tried to teach it the penmanship she was known for, how to make the slanted stems of the P's and D's, the descending roundness of the capital M's, the long loops of the F's crossed at the center, sending it back again and again until each message was the same, a record of her insistence that the hand return her to the way she was before, and of all the ways the hand had disobeyed. I get a chill reading that. I think of that as deeply sensitive in so many ways, deeply observant to the point of understanding, of insight into Wes's mother's experience, of observing this practice, this desire, and seeing through it. And that's the sensitivity part. That's how I think poets actually feel through an observation to something. I was going to say a meaning, but sometimes it's even a further question on the other side. So I'd like to use this as our spark this week, this poem, My Mother's Penmanship Lessons. Write a poem, if you would like to, that feels the world from someone else's or something else's perspective. Here, Wes is feeling his mother's experience of aging, and he's doing it through the topic or through the idea of her trying to school her hand into the penmanship which she was known for. Feeling someone else's experience and seeing what we can glean from that. So again, write a poem that feels the world from someone else's or something else's experience or point of view. See what you make of that. You can take that in so many ways. So let me now, I want to hold up my notebook as ever. It's sort of deepening. If you can see here, I've added Trey Dennis's haiku because I like it so much. I keep writing in here, but and also my little notebook that I love and tote around, and it's just full of little scratchings, really. And that's one thing I wanted to talk to you about today, is that I find, and I wonder if you do, that the format of what whoa, the light just went out. Let's put that on again. This is low tech, my friend, here. Well, I don't know if we can. Let's try. Sorry. Nope, we can't. So I would be in the dark here. Anyway, the format of what I'm writing in makes a big difference to what I write. When I write in this, I tend to, I write messy, but I also write small. I write shorter poems. When I write in my binder, I write longer poems. And there's nothing preferable about either of those. It's just interesting to notice. I wanted to read one poem that I wrote this week that is kind of a sensitivity poem. It's called Romance. You object to my love affair with flowers. Waste of money, you pronounce, they'll just die. So will we, I don't say. All things wilt in time. But while we're here, while I'm here, even without you, what joy to succumb to beauty's advances and to surrender eternity and bloom. So I'm having a great time writing poems, and I think you are too. Let's keep going. This week, my dare to you is to cultivate your sensibility by learning something new. Now, or bringing something new into your environment, something that you find beautiful or fascinating. So that might be, as you see, I really, the flowers are all up here on my bookshelf. I surround myself with flowers because I love them. Cultivate that sensibility, noticing what you love, noticing what appeals to and attracts you. That's like growing your poetry, truly. So bring something into your life that you find fascinating or beautiful. You could learn it. It could be a physical object. And if you want, bonus points if you write a poem. So, my friends, thank you for spending this time with me. I'm sorry about the technical issue here. This is just life in my house. Thank you so much. I'm always grateful for you liking this video. It really does mean a lot to me. I appreciate it so much. I love your comments. Please keep them coming. It feels like throwing a party and people actually come. And I love it when you show up and when you give a comment. Subscribe if you haven't. I suspect most of you have. If you haven't, it's really a help. And let your poet friends know it is never too late to join in. We actually have 2 videos after this one. So anybody can come in at any time, and we're so glad to welcome them. So thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful week of poetry, of cultivating your sensitivity, of being proud of it. I'll say in closing, I made a series of videos called Creative Hurts and How to Heal Them. And I'll link to those in the comments or in the comment under this video. If you're creative, doubtless you have sometimes felt hurt, rejected, you've felt that you've made a mistake. Any of these hurts, perhaps you'd be helped by watching those. I'd love to share them with you. They're all here on YouTube. They're all free. And please help yourself. And just also know that we're together in this. This is what makes us poets. It's wonderful to be with you. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful week of poetry.